Welcome to Mission Viejo Today. I'm your host, Mayor Trish Kelly. Today we are going to talk about a very important topic, and that is drowning prevention. Joining me is Orange County Fire Authority Community Relations Supervisor, Lynette Rount. Lynette, I want to thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
As our residents know, all year long, Orange County Fire Authority conducts a public outreach campaign about drowning prevention. It's not a once-a-year outreach that we do. It's something that needs to go on all year round because we have pools and lakes and we have good weather where people are outside a lot. Can you tell us why the campaign is so important, the drowning prevention campaign?
Like you said, it is so important, and it is year-round because we do have such beautiful weather here. We do get those heat waves that come in, and we do have all those pools. If people don't have pools in their backyard, there are a ton of community pools. And so we want people to be aware when they're around any body of water, whether it's a residential pool, it could be a spa, even at home, your bathtub, even a bucket of water. It's all a place that a child can drown. Not only a child, but the adults can drown as well. Our big campaign this year is Always Swim with a Buddy. Last year we saw a huge increase in adult drownings. Residents over 65 years old, we saw a 40% increase in fatalities. We want that number to be 0, and it can be preventable.
Now you're talking a little bit about numbers, and I know you read every now and then about a drowning, and it's such a tragedy, but do you have the number for exactly how many drownings our Orange County Fire Authority had to respond to in the past year?
In 2013, countywide, there were 71 drowning incidents with 35 fatalities. We want that number to be 0. Like I said, it is completely preventable. And a lot of the times the fatalities have been adults and they've been alone. Either they have a cardiac arrest or they've had a stroke, or even scuba diving, they could have an accident. Anytime you're alone in the water, it's a recipe for disaster. So if you're going to be in any body of water, especially swimming, if you're an adult, you want to let somebody know you're out there. Maybe pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm taking a quick swim in the pool, I'm doing some laps, and then call when you're done. That way, if something does happen, you have somebody that's aware of that you're out there.
Now, where do most of the drownings occur?
Here in Orange County, we've seen quite a few in community pools. Last year, we had 17 incidents in community pools. And usually when you're at a community pool, you have a lot of people around you. Sometimes you have pool monitors or even lifeguards, but that's not a substitute for the active adult supervision. As a parent, our kids rely on us to be watching them. So we need to be able to see them. We need to be in arm's length from them. That way, if something happens and they happen to go under, you're able to quickly pull them up. If the kids are really good swimmers, you want to have a good visual. You want to be able to see them, because if you look away for just a second and they go under and you go to look back, you may not catch them. We have these trusty little water watcher tags that I brought out today, and what this is the adult wears it and they're strictly watching the water. They're considered the water watcher. They're not watching the kids swimming. They're not talking on the phone, texting, reading, talking to their friends. I know that's a fun one to do, but they're strictly watching the water. And what they're looking for is if anything happens underneath the water. What happens with a drowning, you don't see it happening, you don't hear it. These children and even adults, they quietly go under. Drowning is very unique in that you're not seeing the flailing that you see on television. You see them from here up, and they're just struggling to get the air. The movement's under the water and you don't see it. And they can't cry for help because they're just trying to breathe.
You've just described what a drowning looks like. And like you said, it's not like you see on TV where arms and legs are waving. It is silent.
It is a silent killer.
Slipping.
Definitely.
Under the water.
And if people know what to look for, they can be more aware. Even if there's a lifeguard present or a water monitor, it's not a substitute for you watching your child. And if for some reason you have to leave, let's say you have another child that needs to use the restroom, pull your child out of the water, take them with you. It's your best bet to prevent a drowning is to always know where your child is at. If your child is missing, go to the pool first if you have it. Go to the spa if you have it. If you have a pond, a waterfall, always check the water first, because kids are so curious about water, they're going to gravitate to that place first. If you have buckets of water, people don't think about, oh, I'm mopping the floor. A child's head is top heavy. If they tip over, they're going to be able to get stuck and they're not going to be able to get back out. We brought some trusty little toilet latches, and a lot of times you want to kid-proof your home. Well, we want those toilets protected because if the child happens to open that door and they get in, they can't get out. So we don't want them to drown in the toilet.
I have 5 little grandchildren. The oldest is 5, and 2 3-year-olds and 2 1-year-olds.
Oh, wow.
And so they live nearby, so I'm with them a lot, and I give a lot of baths. And that, when I have the little 1-year-olds in the bathtub,
Oh, yeah.
you can just see, you don't turn your back for a minute. You don't go answer the phone. You don't go get the towel. You are right there on them because they could go under just so quickly.
Definitely, and just like you explained, definitely keep those towels there next to you. If for some reason you have to get a towel, drain that bathtub out. Never leave a child alone in the bathtub because they can drown in as little as 2 inches of water. Doesn't seem like a lot of water, but once that gets into the lungs, it really makes it hard for them to breathe. So we want to make sure we can prevent all of that. And like I said, the telephone is always a distraction. Another child could be a distraction. Don't let that be the one thing that has a disaster coming after it. We want everybody to be safe.
Learning about all the different areas of where drownings can occur, it's not just in the swimming pool, it's not just in the ocean. Raising awareness like this is so very important.
It is the actual most critical piece. A lot of times people always think, oh, that's not going to happen to me. I'm a great parent. It's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to let this happen. You know, you could be the best parent in the world. It's not your fault if your child drowns, if for some reason some other distraction occurs, but you want to prevent that from happening. You have to know what to look for. You have to know what to do. You may think changing a diaper by the side of the pool is something that's, hey, that's okay, but if you cannot see that other child in that water, something could happen.
Something really could happen, and something did happen that we will be sharing with our viewers. This is a topic, drowning, that the Watson family is unfortunately all too familiar with. It was in June of 2008 that their little 2-year-old Ryder Watson had climbed into the family pool unnoticed, and he was found face down in the water by his mother, Joelle. We recently had an opportunity to talk with the Watsons at their home. Today we are at the home of Jim and Joelle Watson and Ryder, and we're in their backyard, and we are going to ask you to take us back to an incident that happened, a near tragedy that happened in 2008.
It was in 2008, it was the day before Father's Day, and we were having a large party for our other son's baseball team. They had just won the Tournament of Champions, and so we had all of the families and grandparents and extended family, and about 100 people, a little over 100 people coming for a party. And so the night before I had said, you know, let's take down the fence because there's just one little gate to open it, and it's going to be, you know, a little be a lot more convenient. And so that night, I had a very vivid nightmare that he had drowned in the blind spot of the pool. And I woke Jim up and was terrified. I was shaking. I said it was so real. And he said, you know, we're taking the fence down. You're probably just thinking about that. And then the next day at the party, as you know, it's crazy and barbecuing and making sure everybody's happy and, watching him and you watch him and you watch him. And Jim left to go buy ice, and I was standing at the blind spot of the pool talking to somebody, and the visual just still gets me every time. I was talking to this woman, and like a voice said to me, like, "Where's Ryder?" And I didn't, look like to the house or ask anybody where he was. I immediately stepped into the blind spot of the pool, and I saw him floating, and just face down. And I immediately reached down and pulled him up, and I knew by his body weight, because I'd picked him up 20 times a day, that he was about double his body weight, and so I knew he had been in there a long time. And there was no screaming, no crying. I just yelled, "Call 911," and I put him down on the cement, said a quick prayer, and his face was blue and his lips were eggplant purple, and I thought for a second, it's too late. And I just started CPR. I'd never been trained in CPR. I had no idea what I was doing, but something came over me, and I was able to do it. And it took me, I started pumping, breathing on him and pumping his chest, and some water came out, and then I just continued the process, and then some more water came out, and then he just started moaning and just never opened his eyes. It was just, so I knew he was alive, but I didn't know at that point if there was, how much damage had been done. And I remember glancing up at that point and seeing everybody standing around, silent like this. And then my daughter came running over, and she was screaming at the top of her lungs and crying, and I couldn't help her. I was just, looking at him, and at that time, then the ambulance, they came and ran into the backyard, yelled everybody in the house, and immediately put all the monitors on him, and put us both up on the gurney, and wheeled us out to the ambulance and put us in there. And I kind of blacked out at this point. I remember looking down at him, and he was just listless. And again, his eyes still hadn't opened. And I looked at the paramedic and said to him, "I'm sorry, I'm just going back. It just gets me every time." I said, "Is he going to be okay?" And he said, "You saved his life." And he said, most times people panic and they're like, "Oh my God, somebody help me!" And they're, and it's because you have very few seconds. And he said, you saved his life. And they checked the oxygen level on his hand, and they said, "We don't know, what the extent of the damage is, but his oxygen level looked good." And so they put us in the emergency room, and he was just laying there listless. And I just remember, so distraught. And then he came running in. I wasn't, he was gone and didn't have his phone, and so when he got home, nobody was there, and my daughters told him what happened, and he
went through every red light on the way to the hospital, and just so glad to, get into the hospital room and see them both safe, and he really wasn't saying much, so I was a little worried about him still, but, at the same time, she did such a wonderful job in saving his life.
So Jim, you came home from running your errand, and everyone was gone?
Everyone was gone. We had,
it happened like that.
50 cars on our street and 100 people in our pool. And I came home, and there was no one. And so, I thought it was maybe a joke on me or something, but, I came in, and my daughter told me, that Ryder drowned. And so I jumped in the car and just couldn't get to the hospital fast enough. So.
It was amazing because there was 20 people in the pool. There was 100 people there. And the fact, that I found him, that I saw him, exactly the way it happened in my dream is the way it happened. And so I thought by dreaming that I willed it to happen. And through a lot of therapy, because it took a lot of therapy, I was really messed up after that. And, of course, he wanted to go right back in the water. And I couldn't go in the backyard for weeks. And actually, I thought that right after it happened, I thought that I was dreaming that he was alive. So for 3 days, I wouldn't let myself go to sleep because I thought if I fell asleep, I would wake up and he would be dead. And so I couldn't tell the difference between reality and what was actually happening. And so I had post-traumatic stress syndrome, and I had to be hypnotized and go through a lot of therapy. And, it was the worst experience that our family has ever had. But something good always comes out of it. And what it did for our family, we have 5 children, and we're all so close. and the way they love each other, you know, is just, it's incredible. And, you know, I think that it happened to us so that we would pay it forward and do things like this. And as painful as it is to keep reliving or to talking about it, you know, it's the #1 death for children under 5, and you don't hear about it, not nearly enough. And so we want to create awareness, so because there are very easy, you know, simple solutions to avoid it, and you know, things I never thought of. Hire a lifeguard. It's so simple. 20, 25 bucks an hour, $100 for peace of mind. It's just silly not to have somebody that's just focused on the pool. And we've done that ever since. And then of course immediately got him into swimming lessons, which he was doing 4 days a week after that.
Ryder, is this your dog?
Yep.
What's the dog's name?
Molly.
Molly. Okay, and Ryder, how old were you when you fell in the pool?
About 2 or 3.
2 years old. I think Mom and Dad said that you were just under 2 years old. Do you remember that day?
Not really.
You don't remember anything that happened? Okay. Well,
We'll
as
hear about it the rest of his life, though.
you will, and you are a miracle. It's just a miracle that you're here with us today, and that we had a happy ending to this story. I'm a mom. I have 3 children and a grandma. I have 5 grandchildren, all under 5 years old. So when I read your story, it just stabbed me in the heart, because I can picture, I can feel what it had to be like for you. But it's such a remarkable story, because you did the right thing. You saved your son's life. These drownings happen to good parents, they happen in good homes, to good families, and they happen when people are around. It's amazing that you had a large group there, and Ryder for a few moments was unnoticed. You've talked about some tips for parents, such as making sure that kids are pool safe early, and possibly hiring a lifeguard if you're going to have a party. What else, Jim? What other thoughts do you have that you might share with
Well,
parents?
I think for sure just keeping the gate up. You know, I think a pool net is always a good thing.
So one of the other tips that our drowning prevention people at Orange County Fire Authority tell us is to assign someone to be a water watcher, and they actually have tags that says water watcher, and that person is only responsible for eyes on the water. So there are a number of things that you can do that you may not think of. But I know also, if you do call 911, the dispatcher sometimes walks people through how to do CPR. But did you have time for that? What happened? Were you able to take advantage of talking to the dispatcher?
I wasn't. It was actually not even an option. The minute I saw him, it was immediately like, I have to save him. In fact, I didn't even think to say, is there a doctor here? Or is anybody trained or certified? It was just, I have to get to him immediately and do whatever I can do. And I knew by looking at him and by feeling his body weight that he had been in there a long time, and nobody really knows how long he had been in there.
And you had said that you had never done CPR and you didn't know how to do it. So your instinct and maybe some kind of divine intervention
for sure. I believe that there were angels there that day, you know, that told me what to do, and I believe that dream before was a premonition, because I think for a second, if I would have, you know, looked to the house or took a second to ask somebody where he was, if I didn't step into that blind spot, then you know, it might have been too late.
Joelle, it seems like in the movies when you see a drowning happen, there's yelling and arms waving. Is that what happens? Is it silent? Is it noticeable? Tell me about it.
It is silent, and that's what's so scary is, you know, again, you assume because there's so many people around that, you know, you're going to be alerted in some way, and you're going to hear it and be able to react to it, and it's completely the opposite. You don't hear a word. He slipped into the water, and nobody saw him, and nobody could hear him. It's a silent death, unfortunately, and I think it's a misconception.
Do you think he passed?
I do believe he passed and came back. I believe it was a miracle because, you know, after that with the night terrors, and there would be times that I would relive it, and I would wake up, and within seconds I would hear his feet running down the hallway, and he'd climb in bed with me, and he would comfort me, and he would just be like, "It's okay, Mommy." And he would do this to me, and so I know that I believe he's my angel, and what a blessing to us.
Yeah, we thank God every day.
Mm-hmm. And Jim, I bet you were so proud of your wife
for
just jumping into action.
She did an amazing job. I mean, you know, and as you know, most moms just scream and yell and ask others for help, when she just, you know, went right to the task. I mean, it was just an amazing motherly instinct, you know, that she had, and you know, I'm just so blessed for her, and of course so blessed that, you know, our writer's still with us. So.
But this is truly a miracle story and a happy story, and I'm glad that our viewers are able to visit you in your home here, and to be able to hear that a drowning can happen to anybody, anytime. I personally feel that you are saving lives right now by being brave enough to do this show with us, because it has to be so hard for you to relive it and to talk about it. We thank our Mission Viejo viewers for taking the time to watch this very important show, and we ask you to review what you do in your own homes, and when you go to community pools or to friends' homes, remember the things we've learned today from the Watsons and what we learned from Orange County Fire Authority. We can also get more information from the website ocfa.org concerning drownings and drowning prevention. Also, please watch for the workshops and the water safety programs that we run very often in our own city of Mission Viejo. Thank you. Can you just imagine the sheer horror and panic that you would experience in seeing your child underwater like that, pulling them up and then providing CPR? It's a incident that we don't ever want to see happen. And good parents, like you say, this can happen to anybody. Good parents, good home, good family, but accidents happen.
They definitely do. And we want to prevent those accidents from happening, and being aware and getting that education is the first step.
What are some of the ways that adults can prevent drownings with their children?
There's a couple of ways. That you can always make sure that your children have swim lessons. That way they can become confident swimmers, but it doesn't take away you supervising your child. So we want the kids to be good swimmers. We want the adults to be good swimmers as well, because a lot of adults just don't know how to swim. We don't want them to feel bad about that, but be aware that they should probably learn how to swim as well. Also, being an active water watcher. And that water watcher has to be a person who can swim. That way, if the child is in distress, they can jump in and get them. But that active adult supervision is so important, because they're actively watching that water, making sure nothing is happening. And then knowing CPR is so important. It is life and death situations that can help with the CPR classes. It's hands only right now. That's the new criteria that we have, hands only CPR. And it gives the person the benefit of getting that much needed oxygen to the brain to keep their body going. CPR, swim classes, and then another way, if you do have residential pools, if you have a pool in your home, we want you to have those barriers around your pool. Having a fence is so important to be around your pool. Having the gate open out away from the pool, and it should be self-latching. That way if somebody opens it, it'll automatically close. Making sure you have pool alarms. They have subsurface alarms and then they have them above surface. Even having them on your doors and windows that lead out to the pool. All the extra barriers that you have are just those extra layers of protection. And then look around your home. What are the risks that you have? How old are the children? Know what type of risks that they're around and try and get rid of those risks. Reduce every risk that you possibly can to help.
That is such good information, and as you were speaking, I just had all kinds of ideas going through my head. These life vests would be great Christmas presents, birthday presents, and just, I love the Water Watcher tag. Now, you've done many community outreach programs, and I've attended quite a few of them. You do them right here in Mission Viejo, in our Mission Viejo pools, and you talk about water safety or a simulated drowning, and we'll be showing some of that on this program. But it really, you can't always get people to go out to an event like that. So the more that we can increase the awareness, you know, as you know, we'll be able to save lives.
Definitely, and just that word of mouth, sharing with your friends, sharing with your neighbors. They may not know, they may not understand, and just talking to them and letting them know, hey, did you see this portion on Mission Viejo television? I didn't see it, tell me all about it. Knowing what to look for and knowing those risks around your home can definitely help you and your family out, and you'll be helping your neighbors as well.
That's true, and preventing a tragedy. Now, people usually assume that when you hear the word drowning, that it's a death. Is that true? Is a drowning a death always?
Not necessarily. The World Health Organization established that drowning is the immersion or submersion of liquid into the lungs. So if there's any type of respiratory impairment, that person has had a drowning. Now you have non-fatal, which means they've survived and they're on their own, and then you have the fatality. So we're trying to reduce all the drowning incidents. We have the non-fatal drownings, but that doesn't necessarily mean that person is completely cured. They could have some irreversible brain damage, they could be paralyzed, they could be in comas. You just don't know to what extent the damage is done with a drowning.
It is not necessarily always a death, as in the case of little Ryder slipping into the pool and being revived with CPR. So there again, it's so important for all of us, whether you have children or grandchildren or just to be a good neighbor, a good citizen in the community, to know that CPR. And I really thank you, Lynette, for being here today and for sharing this good information. I'm hoping that through helping to increase the awareness about this problem and what some of the potential outcomes could be, good and bad, that we will be making a difference in our community. It's been one of my missions this year as the mayor to increase safety, not only through fire and police and the ways that we think about public safety, but to increase and enhance personal safety. How do we know how to react in an emergency? Do we know CPR? Do we have information about things like drowning prevention and drunk driving? And so I'm really hoping that this is one way to make a difference in our community.
I think it's a wonderful way, and I thank you for letting me come today and for explaining to people exactly what drowning prevention is, what it looks like, and how it can be prevented.
Well, I want to let our viewers know that the OCFA website at ocfa.org has additional information for the public about drowning prevention. So be sure that you go there to check it out. Also watch for those drowning prevention programs and water safety programs. And I want to thank each of you who has watched today for joining us on this edition of Mission Viejo Today.